Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling, well, maybe the biggest, most frustrating cold case in all of history. The hunt for the body and the tomb of Alexander the Great.
It really is the enduring mystery for archaeology, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, think about Alexander died young, 32, back
Yeah.
in 323 BCE in Babylon.
Yeah.
And his tomb, for centuries, it wasn't just a tomb, it was a massive landmark, a place emperors like Caesar, Augustus, they had to visit, a cult site.
And yet, gone.
Yeah.
Vanished. Despite all that fame, we have no idea where his body is now. It's been lost for, what, nearly 2,000 years?
It's astounding, and finding it, well, that's the Holy Grail, like you said. That body, initially in this huge golden sarcophagus, it was the symbol of power, of legitimacy for whoever came after him.
Which explains why there's been so much effort to find it. You mentioned over 140 formal searches.
At least, yeah, just since the 1800s.
Yeah.
Driven by this huge hole in the historical record.
Okay, so our mission today. Let's track this king's corpse. Let's look at the history, the different burial spots, and then dive into some of the, frankly, wild modern theories about where it might actually be.
It starts right after his death in Babylon. Pure chaos in politics. His generals, the Diadochi, they sort of agreed, okay, send the body back home, back to Aegean Macedonia, the traditional place for kings.
But nobody trusted each other.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
And Ptolemy Soter, who's running Egypt, he was the shrewdest. He made the first big move.
The hijacking.
Exactly. 321 BCE. This incredible funeral cart, Diodorus, describes it like a temple on wheels, massive, it's heading through Syria.
And Ptolemy just intercepts it.
Bribes the guards, grabs the body, diverts the whole procession south to Egypt. A total power play.
Yeah.
He was saying, Alexander's legacy, it's mine now. It's here in Egypt.
And the first place he takes the body isn't Alexandria, because Alexandria wasn't quite ready yet.
All right, crucial point. The first stop was Memphis, still the capital then. And we know this from good sources, Pausanias, the Paharian Marble Chronicle. They confirm he was buried in Memphis first.
For how long?
About 4 decades, give or take, roughly until 280 BCE.
Okay, and for that first Memphis tomb, there's this interesting theory connecting it to the previous pharaoh, Nectanebo II.
Yeah, it's quite neat, actually. Nectanebo, the last native pharaoh, he'd fled Egypt way back in 341 BCE.
Leaving his sarcophagus empty.
Precisely.
Mm.
So the theory goes, Ptolemy used Nectanebo's abandoned temple complex near the Serapeum at Saqqara as the initial tomb, and he likely popped Alexander right into Nectanebo's vacant sarcophagus.
Practical, but also politically brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably how the whole Alexander romance story started. You know, that cycle of legends claiming Nectanebo II was secretly Alexander's father.
Ah, so it links Alexander to the old pharaohs, makes the Greek rule seem legitimate to the Egyptians.
Exactly. Instant propaganda win for Ptolemy's new dynasty.
So Alexander rests in Memphis for about 40 years, establishing that link. Then he's moved.
Yes, moved to the city he founded, Alexandria.
Yeah.
Ptolemy II started the process, but it was his successor, Ptolemy V Philopator, who built the final, really grand mausoleum.
The Soma.
The Soma, yeah, Greek for body, or sometimes called the Thema, the grave sign. This wasn't just for Alexander. The Ptolemaic royals were buried there too. It became the dynasty's central cult site.
And its fame just grew and grew even after the Ptolemies were gone.
For centuries, it was like a required stop for Roman emperors. They wanted that connection to Alexander's greatness.
We have records of who visited.
Oh, yeah. Julius Caesar, 48 BCE. Cleopatra famously stripped gold from the tomb to fund her war effort.
Desperate times.
Very. And then Augustus, after he defeated Antony and Cleopatra, he visits the mummy, puts a golden crown on its head,
Wow.
and then apparently refuses to even look at the other Ptolemaic rulers buried nearby. Said he came to see a king, not corpses. Shows you Alexander's unique status.
Incredible, but the tomb itself didn't stay quite so golden.
No, the later Ptolemies hit hard times. Ptolemy X, around 89 BCE, he actually melted down the original gold sarcophagus.
What? Why?
Needed the cash, presumably. Replaced it with one made of crystal, maybe glass. Still a spectacle. The body was still on display, but diminished.
And the last time we know for sure someone saw the mummy.
The last definite mention is just before 390 CE. After that, silence.
Which is where the mystery really deepens. It seems unlikely something so important would just get lost or forgotten.
The timing is the key. Think about what's happening around 390 CE. The Roman Empire is officially Christian.
The Theodosian decrees.
Exactly. Issued between 389 and 391 CE. These decrees order the closure and offer the destruction of pagan temples and cult sites across the empire. And Alexander's tomb. It was a major pagan cult center.
So it wasn't an earthquake or a fire. It was likely deliberately suppressed.
That's the most probable explanation. St. Cyril of Alexandria even wrote about treasures being stripped from Alexander's cult places. By 400 CE, St. John Chrysostom could write something pretty shocking. His tomb, even his own people know not.
Wow, so it was actively erased from public knowledge within a single generation.
Seems that way. The physical location, the body itself, just hidden away or possibly destroyed as part of this anti-pagan push.
Okay, that brings us to the modern search and the big problem. Alexandria today, it's a huge, bustling city. How on earth do you excavate something like that?
It's an archaeologist's nightmare. The general consensus puts the Soma somewhere near the intersection of modern El Araya and Nebi Daniel roads, the heart of the ancient royal quarter. But digging there, almost impossible with a modern city built right on top.
Well, you know people have tried a lot.
Over 100 documented attempts in that area alone, and people are still looking.
We should mention Calliope Limnius Papacosta's work.
Absolutely. She's doing incredible work excavating deep beneath the Shellac Gardens right in that royal quarter area. Found amazing Hellenistic artifacts, even a beautiful marble statue head of Alexander.
But not the tomb itself.
Not the Soma, no. Not yet, anyway. It remains elusive.
And then there are always other theories, other locations that pop up.
Always. There's local legend pointing to the Nabi Daniel Mosque, but most scholars are pretty skeptical about that specific spot being the Soma.
What about the Kaista tomb in Greece? That caused a stir.
Huge excitement, yeah.
Yeah.
That massive tomb at Amphipolis. For a while, people hoped it was Alexander. But the evidence inside points much more strongly towards Hephaestion, his closest companion.
And Siwa Oasis, because of the oracle.
People mention it because he was declared son of Zeus Ammon there, but honestly, there's no real evidence linking his burial to Siwa. It's more wishful thinking.
Okay, but let's circle back to Memphis. Because the archaeology there seems to be reinforcing that Nectanebo II connection in a really interesting way.
This is where it gets compelling. Remember that temple compound of Nectanebo II near the Serapeum at Socorro?
Yeah, where the first tomb might have been.
Archaeologists found something amazing guarding the entrance to that very compound. A semicircle of life-size Greek statues. Homer, Pindar, Plato. Greek sages and poets.
Greek statues guarding an Egyptian pharaoh's temple.
And crucially, they date specifically to the reign of Ptolemy the Food, the guy who hijacked the body.
Huh. So why would Ptolemy put Greek statues there unless...
Unless that compound was holding something incredibly important to him and his Greek dynasty. It strongly suggests that Nectanebo's temple was where Alexander was first buried in Memphis.
Which leads us neatly into maybe the most controversial but strangely well-supported theory, the idea that Alexander got rebranded.
The St. Mark theory. It's radical, but the pieces fit together surprisingly well. The core idea, around 392 CE, right when the anti-pagan decrees were at their height.
And Alexander's tomb vanishes.
The body of St. Mark the Evangelist suddenly appears in Alexandria, in the very area where Alexander's shrine was located. The theory suggests Alexander's body was secretly relabeled as St. Mark to save it from destruction.
That seems incredibly risky, passing off a pagan king as a major Christian saint.
Preservation. The body itself, the physical remains, were seen as immensely powerful, almost magical, too important to let vanish. By calling him St. Mark, protectors could smuggle him, essentially, into the safety of the new Christian establishment.
Protected by the very people who might have otherwise destroyed him.
Precisely.
And then centuries fly by, and this body, now known as St. Mark, ends up in Venice.
The famous story from 828 AD, Venetian merchants wanting a powerful patron saint for their rising city, they sail to Alexandria and liberate the remains of St. Mark.
Steal them, basically.
Pretty much. Took them back to Venice, built the magnificent St. Mark's Basilica to house them. The theory is they didn't steal St. Mark, they stole Alexander, who was already being passed off as St. Mark by the Alexandrian Church.
Okay, circumstantial timing is one thing, but you mentioned physical evidence linking Memphis, Alexandria, and Venice.
This is the kicker, the aha moment. Two key objects. First, that empty sarcophagus of Nectanebo II, the one Ptolemy likely used first. It's now in the British Museum.
Okay.
Second, there's a chunk of carved stone, a piece of tomb decoration, found embedded in the foundations of St. Mark's Basilica in Venice back in the 1960s. It's called the Star Shield Block.
And what's special about it?
It's clearly Macedonian. It has carvings of a Macedonian star or shield, and maybe a sarissa, the long pike. And here's the thing. Its dimensions, its style, they are a perfect fit for the Nectanebo seal sarcophagus in London.
Wait, so a piece of the casing from the first tomb in Memphis somehow ended up in the foundation of the church in Venice?
That's the implication. The theory suggests Ptolemy put a custom Macedonian casing around the Nectanebo sarcophagus in Memphis. Moved the whole thing body, sarcophagus casing to the Soma in Alexandria. Then, almost 1,000 years later, when the body, now called St. Mark, was taken to Venice, this fragment of the original Macedonian casing somehow went with it.
That's incredibly specific. Has this been verified?
Well, the fit is exact, and it's significant enough that even the British Museum has softened its stance. They used to flat-out deny any link between the Nectanebo sarcophagus and Alexander. Now their online notes are much more cautious.
So if this chain of evidence holds, what's the final step to prove that the bones under the altar in Venice are Alexander's?
Forensics. Simple as that, in theory. We know Alexander suffered specific, serious injuries that healed. An arrow wound in the lower leg from Afghanistan, another arrow wound, this one to the chest, in India.
And if the skeleton in Venice shows those healed injuries...
Then it's Alexander. Case closed.
Yeah.
The physical proof would be undeniable.
But it hasn't been examined.
No. The Catholic Church authorities in Venice have consistently refused requests to allow forensic anthropologists access to the remains venerated as St. Mark.
Wow. Okay, so that's one incredibly detailed, evidence-backed, but currently blocked theory. And as if that weren't enough, there's one more, even more radical idea out there.
Yes, the one that throws established Egyptian chronology completely out the window. The idea that Alexander the Great is Tutankhamun.
You mean the mummy found by Howard Carter in KV-62, King Tut?
That's the one. This theory proposes that the mummy we call Tutankhamun is actually Alexander, and that the standard timeline placing Tutankhamun 1,000 years earlier is fundamentally wrong.
Okay, hold on. 1,000-year gap. How does anyone even start to justify that?
It starts with the mummy itself. Officially, Tut died aged 18 or 19. But modern scans, they suggest an age closer to the mid-20s, maybe even up to 27. And some pathologists argue the bone development could even fit someone up to 33.
Alexander's age at death, 32 or 33.
Exactly. Plus the teeth. The KV-62 mummy has fully erupted wisdom teeth showing somewhere. That's typical for an adult in their late 20s or early 30s, not really for a teenager.
And the timeline itself, why would it be off by a neat 1,000 years?
Proponents argue the established chronology relies heavily on sources like Manetho's king lists, which are known to be incomplete and sometimes politically motivated. They find the exact 1,000-year discrepancy suspicious, maybe a later error, or even an intentional fudge to separate Alexander from the pharaonic sequence.
Then there's the DNA evidence, which caused a stir a while back, the haplogroup.
Right, haplogroup R1b1a2. It's a genetic marker passed down the male line. It turned up in the KV-62 mummy's DNA results.
And that's unusual for Egypt.
Statistically, yes. It's much more common in Western Europe, including ancient Macedonia. Plus, the mummy's height, around 167, 170 centimeters, is taller than the average for Egyptian pharaohs of Tut's supposed era, but fits estimates for Alexander.
Okay, what about the treasures? The famous mask, the chariots, everything found in that spectacular tomb. They look Egyptian.
They look Egyptian, but the details raise questions. For example, the tomb contained iron objects, like that famous dagger. Iron was almost impossibly rare and valuable in Bronze Age Egypt.
But common in Alexander's time, the 4th century BCE.
Correct. And techniques like the chasing on the gold mask, the design of the chariots, experts have pointed out strong parallels to Macedonian and Persian styles from the 4th century BCE, even styles seen on Alexander's own coins.
So the argument is, KV-62 wasn't Tut's tomb originally. It was a secret, hidden burial for Alexander made to look Egyptian.
That's the core idea. A way to bury Alexander in Thebes, the sacred heartland of Egypt, near Karnak to Egyptianize him, make him one with Osiris, maybe before the more public political tomb, the Soma, was established later in Alexandria.
Any textual hints for that?
Some proponents point to certain Arab chronicles that occasionally call Alexander al-Karnaki, linking him to Karnak Thebes, or mention him being taken to the southern lands, which means Upper Egypt, where Thebes is.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, the search for Alexander's body takes us on this wild journey. From Memphis and a possibly repurposed pharaoh's tomb.
To the Grand Soma in Alexandria, visited by emperors then suppressed.
To a theory involving saints and Venetian merchants, with physical evidence potentially linking a London sarcophagus to a Venice church foundation.
And finally, to this completely alternative history, suggesting he's been hiding in plain sight in the most famous Egyptian tomb of all time.
It's an incredible amount of conflicting, yet sometimes compelling evidence.
Absolutely. And while the body is still officially lost, The ongoing search, these competing theories, they keep the discussion alive. They force us, really, to re-examine things we thought we knew about Egyptian chronology, about artifact dating, about how history gets written and rewritten.
Which leads to a final thought. If the St. Mark theory is correct, and the only thing preventing confirmation is refusal to examine the bones in Venice, what does that say? What does the continued loss of Alexander tell us? Maybe less about the past and more about our own time, our institutions, and what we choose to prioritize or protect.
It's a powerful question. Is reverence for tradition sometimes an obstacle to discovering historical truth?
Something for you to think about. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.